Hello and welcome again to Cherry Red TV. I'm Iain McNay and my guest today is Gareth Ainsworth. Hi Gareth.
How you doing?
And Gareth has played for many clubs. He's currently the manager of Wycombe Wanderers, and I've brought him along today because he's such an interesting character, and of course he has played also for Wimbledon, he's played for Wickham, and he's played for a lot of clubs. He was first signed to Blackburn Rovers, he was at Northwich Victoria, Preston North End, Cambridge United, again at Preston, Lincoln, Port Vale, Wimbledon, Walsall on loan shortly, Cardiff City shortly, QPR, and then he came to Wickham as a player, and then his caretaker manager, and then his manager. So we're going to find out about Gareth, about his life, what makes him tick inside, and also we're going to start with his music career, because he was telling me earlier, when he was younger, he was almost split between, do I become a rock star or do I become a footballer? And you also told me that I didn't know that your mother was a professional singer.
Yeah. It's I mean, you're saying the decision to become a footballer or a rock star is quite it's quite a nice decision, isn't it? You know, I'm not sure I would have made the rock star, but I made the footballer, which was good. But the music was always big. My mum was a singer. She sang with big bands. So in the '60s, these big bands, orchestras on stage, and she would sing it. 4,000 or 5,000 people. That's where my dad actually met her at one of her gigs, and a lot of covers, Dusty Springfield, Brenda Lee, and Cilla Black at the time, Lulu. You know, all these female wonders, singers of the '60s, and yeah, Mum used to be up there singing. And the big story was that shortly after meeting my dad, she got offered a record contract with EMI in London. This girl from Lancashire, and decided to stay in Lancashire, marry my dad, and I think she probably looks back and maybe says what if, but she's never said that, because shortly along we came along, me and my brother.
Yeah, that's her priority.
And that was the priority then. So the music's always been there. So growing up was a musical household, especially with Mum singing away. You know, Dad totally the opposite. Loved his music to go and see gigs and go and watch it, but never would perform. Mum at every opportunity was singing. I think karaoke wasn't really around then, but if it had have been, I think she'd have been ripping that up as well.
Yeah. And of course, later on, you did have some bands. You were in a band called APA, is that right?
Yep.
With Trond Anderson and Chris Perry.
Yeah.
And
Wimbledon connections.
Yeah. And then you were in Dog Chewed the Handle. And there's the videos on YouTube. I watched a couple. You're quite punky because people were pogoing in the audience.
Yeah, maybe a bit of drink going on there with the audience there, but we are quite punky. You know, the lead guitarist in Dog Chew the Handle is now with me in the current band, the Cold Blooded Hearts, and his influences were the New York Dolls, the Clash, things like that. So there's a punky spin on a lot of the songs, and we do covers. People love to hear covers, so we try and put our spin on them, and it's all about energy. You know, I think those who see me as a player would probably be able to, without seeing me on stage as a singer, would probably know what I would be like. You know, there's plenty of movement, plenty of energy, plenty of jumping around. I just love that energetic feel that I get up there on the football pitch, wherever. But some great days, and I say it all started at Wimbledon with Trond, still a good friend in Norway, and Chris Perry, who again can be mixed up sometimes with the player Chris Perry. It was actually the groundsman Chris Perry, but great drummer at the time.
And you also told me, which we'll just get this in before we go on more to the football side, that you're also in a tribute band, and you're going to be Michael Hutchinson soon.
I am with a tribute band currently. It's so obviously a one-off thing, but there's a festival over near where I live, a place called Dinton Pastures, a marvellous festival it's called, and it's a tribute band festival, and people have their views on that. But you know, we put it together. We're in excess on the Saturday night, and so for I think it's 10 or 11 songs, I'm Michael Hutchins, and he was another one, you know, hero of mine. Loved In Excess. It's obviously the era of the 80s and early 90s, and yeah, it's going to be a test. I don't think there'll be too many managers singing in a tribute band a couple of weeks before the season, but it's a passion. You're not going to take it out of me. So yeah, looking forward to that as well.
And you got this nickname Wild Thing, but when did you actually get that?
At Wimbledon.
At Wimbledon,
so, yeah, at Wimbledon. Kenny Cunningham. Okay. He's spawned the nickname for me. It was actually a round of golf we had Always used to go away on pre-season trips, and we had a round of golf. And I was very, shall we say, wet behind the ears on golf. I'm okay now, but back in those days, I wasn't the greatest player. And I think it came from my swing. I think my first swing hit a golf buggy. Second swing nearly killed one of the, like Carl Lieburn it was, or somebody like that. So Kenny Cunningham just started singing the Wild Thing song, and it kind of stuck. And yeah, it's still today. So that's the nickname, and I think he was quite apt at times.
And Reg Presley, the singer of the Trogs who did that, he was pretty out there too, wasn't he?
Well, he was, yeah, and obviously it's something that stayed with me. I remember at Selhurst Park when it was there, they used to play it on the public address when I'd come on a sub or score a goal. It was fantastic for me. So yeah, it kept it with me, and a bit tamer these days, but there's still that little wild thing in there somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, let's go through your career. We're going to concentrate more on the Wimbledon side, the Wimbledon time, and obviously the Wickham time. But you started at Blackburn in your hometown. You were a trainee.
Yeah.
And obviously you had aspirations, presumably of playing for Blackburn.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is that you'd speak to some players and some managers nowadays, and football they were the best at football in their teams from the age of 6 right through. I wasn't. I didn't even get in the school team until I was in the third year. So that'd be something like year 10 or 11 now, you know. So I wasn't even in the school team at senior school. But once I did get in that team, there was some sort of spurt that I just went through everyone and just became this player. I had speed. I had a right foot, not too much of a left foot. Still haven't got one of those, but just the determination, the desire to play and to win, the competitiveness, just anything I do, even now, you know, to be so competitive, I love it, and went right through. Ended up getting a trial. I was never a schoolboy anywhere. I just got a trial at Blackburn Rovers in about the March. So March, April, May, played for Blackburn Rovers, playing alongside players like David May, who went on to big things at Man United, and Lenny John Ross, Keith Hill, the Rochdale manager now. And I remember I scored a hat-trick in my first trial game against Carlisle in the old B-team league, which was fantastic. And soon after, the dream came true. I got offered a 2-year apprenticeship there.
And didn't David Beckham play shortly for Blackburn as well when you were there?
Preston.
That was at Preston.
Preston, so yeah, it would have been nice because Blackburn's my team, and I would have loved Beckham to play for Blackburn, but that was at Preston later. So the contract offer at Blackburn was dreams come true. It's a team I'd supported all my life. I still support. Season ticket holder from 6 years old, and walked through the doors that season at 16 years old as the old YTS first year. So I enjoyed that. Good.
And you were at Northwich Victoria. Was the first time you played for a first team in the conference?
Yeah. So 2 years at Blackburn, cleaning Frank Stapleton's boots. I remember that, a big name, and learning a lot. But I didn't get the contract. Devastation, you know. And when you're 18, you do 2 years. A lot of success stories where people got their contract, went on. I had to fight. I went to. I remember actually going to Preston on trial, and that sort of started the connection with Preston. But they had no room for me. But Sammy McElroy was the manager of Northwich Victoria, and rang up and said, "Look, I need a right winger. Come and play in the conference." And Mum and Dad, who I have to say, my hero, my dad. You know, he's been fantastic throughout my career. Just said, "Look, you know, we're not going to make you go and get a job. We're not going to, you know, go and pursue this because I believe in you." And I think they were some of the biggest words anyone's ever said to me. Dad saying, "You know, go and play for Northwich Victoria because I think you'll eventually make it." And luckily he was right. But some testing times in the conference.
Did you believe you could make it when you were playing there?
It's really difficult. You know, you have. I think you have a belief when you're young. You have this no fear. You have this of that's all you've got. I did anyway. I don't know if plenty of people say my brother was as good a player as I was, and he was. And I said to my dad, you know, how come Liam never made it? And my dad says the one thing you had over Liam was you mentally would not accept anything else but a footballer, whereas Liam thought, yeah, I'm good at this, but I better concentrate on other things just in case. I never really had a just in case, and looking back, I still never had a just in case. It was, I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna be this footballer, and I think that was like I say, the way I've played and the way I've been on my career. I think it stayed with me. That determination that okay, I may not have the best skill in the world sometimes. There's plenty more skillful players out there than me, but give me a one-on-one in a heart situation and I will go with the best of them.
That's interesting. I remember doing an interview with Marcus Gale a few years ago when he was at Wimbledon, and he was saying, like you, he wasn't the best player in the school, but he was the most determined to make his career out of football. And it was that mental attitude that was just as important as his talent.
And back in those days, the technical and the physical attributes were very important. They were what made you footballers. The mental thing, it made me and Marcus Gale's the scattering. Nowadays, I think it's gone 180 degrees. I believe that everyone's technical, everyone's physical. I think the difference nowadays is this mental strength with the society we live in. And nowadays, I think the mental side is the hardest one to get right. If I'm totally honest, where back then it was technical, physical. Can you play with your wrong foot? Can you do this? Can you do that? Nowadays, it's can you deal with adversity? What can you deal with success, which is just as hard sometimes to deal with.
And the pressures are so much greater these days.
Of course, and the players,
managers and players,
modern day society. That's where we are.
Yeah. So then you went to Preston after Northwich Victoria.
Yeah. Well, what happened was there's a guy, Walter Joyce, Warren Joyce's father. Rest his soul. Warren passed away not long after I left Preston, but Walter had got me in on trial when I left Blackburn, but I ended up going to Northwich. Preston had an injury crisis and they lost their right winger. I think they had two right wingers. One was Lee Ashcroft, which was a real promising young player. I think they lost him to injury. And Les Chapman, who was the manager there, then rang me up and actually said, do you want a game on Saturday? And this is true. And this was probably the Tuesday. I hadn't signed a contract at Northwich for the advice of my dad, who was my agent my whole career. Great advice. So he started off well. And I was able to play for Preston North End on the Saturday. I made my league debut, which was probably all I ever wanted to do at that age. Made my league debut at Game Meadow. I think 2-1 defeat. Still remember it. And played with no contract, with no appearance, with no bonus, with nothing. I wasn't even a contract.
Didn't even get paid for it?
I wasn't even under contract that day. I played that day. I remember signing the forms just to allow me to play in the Football League, but no payment, no contract. And the headlines in the paper on the Monday, I think, were something like, gives a job, says Gareth. And it was, can I have a contract at the end of the season? I think it was about the January this was, so there's 4 months left. I just wanted that contract to be a professional footballer and ended up playing the rest of the season at Preston. Yeah,
fantastic, yeah. It's wonderful to hear these stories about how if you really go for it, somehow Lady Luck often shines on you, gives you the opportunity, gives you that break.
Yeah, and I do believe in this thing people call fate, whatever it is. There is these paths. I think you can detour now and again on them, but I think you can. Your determination will get you there. If you really truly believe in something, I think you can achieve it. And that was my path. You know, the phone call. I still remember. Where I was sat. We had the phone in the hallway, like the old-fashioned phones. That one phone in the house. I sat on the stairs. I couldn't believe the phone call I'd got, and ran in to tell mum and dad because I'm only 18 still at this time, and you know, still a child really. But I had to mature quickly because I had a game at Game Meadow on Saturday.
Yeah. And then you signed for Cambridge. John Beck signed you for Cambridge.
Yeah, so second time I was released at the end of the season. Been released by Blackburn, not good enough, won't make it. And then I got released by Preston the year later, you know. But then there was a scout, I have to mention him, a guy called Glenn Burnell, who was working for John Beck in the Preston area. And I'll always remember my first goal for Preston on the plastic pitch, kicked it out the keeper's hands, determination again. That was the first goal I ever scored. And Glenn gave me a call that summer and said, John Beck will make you a player. I've seen enough in you to know that John Beck will make you a player. So I went down to Cambridge initially for talks with parents. Went down, sat in his office, put me in digs in this house with a family, and I signed a 1-year contract down at Cambridge United under John Beck in the Championship. I think they just missed out on the playoffs for the first ever Premier League, which was incredible. I think Leicester beat them, and the Championship playoffs, they'd just been defeated. I signed for Cambridge United in the Championship and went on to make my Championship debut in about the October, I think. But the game after, John Beck got the sack and got the Preston job. So this is the affair of Preston again. Ended up back at Preston because John Beck, when he got the job, took me with him. So, but if I hadn't met John Beck, you wouldn't have this guy sat here now. Big, my dad and John Beck, I think, are two of probably the biggest influences in my whole career.
And then when you were at Preston, you got to the playoff final.
Yes.
And you beat. Who did you beat?
We got beat.
Oh, it's Wickham. But Wickham beat you. That's right. Wickham beat you.
I wish we'd have beat because I've had 5 years at Wickham. I remember this day in 1994, and there's pictures all around the ground. I'm actually it's great because I'm actually on some of the pictures. They celebrate obviously one of their best days. Wycombe Wanderers. They're beating Preston North End in the playoff final, 1994. But there's me on all the pictures on the losing side. So the irony of it, but. So we went back to Preston a couple of seasons under John Beck. We got to the playoff final, and got beat off Wycombe Wanderers. In a league, what would it be? Division 4 then, so League 2 now. Yes, the final. So first trip at Wembley at 21 years old as well. So from this guy who just got in his school team at sort of 15, 6 years later, was playing at the Twin Towers. And just for me then, I'd made it. I'd done everything I wanted to do. I just wanted to play in front of crowds. So I didn't know what was in front of me, what was to come. But to play that day, I remember it well. And like I say, I wish the result had gone the other way. And
the following year, I think you got back to Wembley again, didn't you? With Preston.
The playoffs. So it wasn't Wembley. They got to the playoffs.
Playoffs
so
again, that's right,
they got to the playoffs, and that was the season. You mentioned David Beckham earlier. That was the season David Beckham came on loan. Another good story. John Beck had left. He'd left Preston. I think he got the Lincoln job. Well, no, he got the Lincoln job a few months later. And there was a guy, Gary Peters, was in charge of Preston. So I'm this 21-year-old, 22 maybe now. Played at Wembley the season before, thinking this place was mine. Anyway, Gary changed the team around a little bit, and I was in and out. Anyway, I remember him pulling me on one Friday afternoon, saying, You're not playing tomorrow, Gareth. And I said, okay. He said, I've got this 17-year-old on loan from Manchester United. And I'm thinking, God, you replacing me with a 17-year-old on loan from Man United. I know it's Man United, but 17. David Beckham walks through the door, and I had to eat my words because I think he scored direct from a corner in his first game, free kick in his second game. But it was a pleasure to play in the same team as him, to train in the same squad as him. And you could see then, he turned up in a Vauxhall Corsa, by the way, that first season he was there. I always remember. And,
but did he apologise for taking your place?
He didn't know he'd taken my place. And of course, I can say that my place was taken by David Beckham's league debut at Preston North End, but not many people will remember me, but they remember David Beckham a lot more. But obviously, when people ask me who's the best player I played with, I have to say him, Maybe not in that time, but look at him now, what he's achieved. And good story. And safe to say, I think at the end of that season, I moved, or the beginning of the next season, I moved on to Lincoln then, where John Beck had come for me again.
Right, he moved again.
And I think they paid money for me.
According to the internet, 25,000.
I think 25,000, So, and again, for me, you have these moments in your career when somebody actually pays money for you. That is something then as well. I'm okay playing these games, but then a club actually pays money for you. £25,000 in 94 or 5, whatever it was. It's a handsome amount of money, So somebody's paid money for me to go and play for them. That's another big moment for me in my career, And the fees to follow obviously were bigger, but that moment I always remember saying that they've actually shelled out. A club has shelled out money for me. And I kept that humility around me because I think it's been an important part of my life. But that was always something that being wanted, and I think all players want to be wanted. So again, big moment for me in my career, and off to Lincoln where the career really did take off then.
Because you started to score lots of goals. You got 22 goals, I think, in your first season there.
Yeah, I remember starting the Golden Boot by a couple of goals and. 2 seasons, two really good seasons. I enjoyed it, really did enjoy it. And still got a big affinity for Lincoln City. I'm so pleased they're back in the league now. I think about 40 odd goals in almost 100 games, you know, and that's where I think you just have these times in your career where you're on a crest of a wave, you're on cloud nine, and you don't know why. You just thought I was fit. I was fitter than anyone on the team. I was as quick as I've ever been in my career. I just remember being able to, if you get me the ball, boys, I'll get past somebody, you know. Just get the ball to me because I know I can beat many people, you know. And it just felt I was super confident. And I think it was John Beck. I think on the psychology side of things, he never actually sat me down and went into my head. But I think the little bits he gave me made me feel, you know, £1 million, and I knew that I could score, I could get past me. I was super confident at the time, and I said I had no injuries, and
he signed you 3 times as well,
great.
So he really believed.
And again,
in you.
yeah, he believed in me, and as I said, you know, big credit to John for my career.
So you moved on then. Port Vale came in.
Port Vale, yeah.
And offered, again, according to the internet, £500,000.
Yeah, it was.
That's starting to be quite serious money in that time.
It's serious money there. I'm a bit more mature now, so I'm understanding a little bit more about the money, but still, you know, I remember going to Port Vale. I remember the team talk. We were playing away at Rotherham for Lincoln, and it was my last game. And it would never happen nowadays, but they'd agreed the deal, but they'd also agreed that I could play for Lincoln that night. So believe me, for one of the only games in my career, I was careful not to get involved in any major tackles, major injury risking stuff. And away on that Tuesday night, I remember the team talk before the game. John Beck told the whole team that I was going, and it was a strange one. We lost the game, I remember, and I remember waving to the Lincoln fans and everyone putting 2 and 2 together, knowing that was me. But to play at the higher levels, I'd always sort of played League One, League Two, as it is now, to get to that Championship, which is where Port Vale were.
Yes.
And to be coming in, I think, you know, record signing at Port Vale, to come in to replace John McCarthy, who'd moved to Birmingham, it was a big thing. And you know, some championships, you know, it's a good league, and some big teams in there. So I was looking forward to the challenge there. And
then I have to ask you about this. It's not a pleasant thing, but Dane Whitehouse.
Yeah.
You did a tackle with him that ended up finishing his career, and I'm more interested in how that affected him incredibly. But how did that affect you? Because you obviously weren't doing this on purpose. How did it affect you that you have this effect on someone?
You have this you have this competitiveness on the pitch, and I remember the game. I remember we were all fired up for the game because Sheffield United were one of the biggest teams in the league, and we needed the points. It was a survival every year season for us. So yeah, the tackle, it was I probably timed it wrong, but not in a million years do you mean to go and end somebody's career, you know. And I think his cruciate ligament was done, and back in those days that could have been a career-ending injury, and you know, people say, "Oh, do you regret?" I don't regret going in for the tackle because that was me, you know. That you don't turn around. Yeah, I wish obviously I hadn't have ended his career, but you know, it's something that.
But what did you say? Did you have any contact with him afterwards?
No, I sent a letter to him, yeah, just to wish him all the best with his recovery, and but you know, it was me being a marked man at Sheffield United. Then, you know, I still get a lot of stick from the fans and that, and obviously rightly so. You know, people are you know, it's just football. It's what happens. But yeah, because he was a promising youngster, and like I say, it's not a nice thing. Yeah, it was not a nice time for me. But again, you know, you're young and you seem to brush things off and get on with your careers. Yeah. And you know, wished him all the best. But again, I was getting on with my career then as well.
And Port Vale was a successful time, and then Wimbledon came in and offered an incredible £2 million for you.
Yeah.
Which at that time was a lot of money.
Totally. Blew me away. You know, I think it was only at Vale for a year. I signed a big contract there, and I made plans to stay in the area, live in the area. And then Wimbledon came. You know, I think there was Tottenham, Leeds and Wimbledon all sort of bidding for me, and Wimbledon went the highest. Sam Haman, Joe Kinnear. I remember meeting in the Landmark Hotel in London, and for a lad from Blackburn to go down to London, it's, you know, I think we'd only ever been there once before on a sightseeing trip. So going down and being blown away by everything, you know, I think I'm about 24, 25 years old now. Again, took my dad, Bill, who was my agent throughout, and sat in front of these two, you know, big names in football that we. And Dave Barnard, I remember, was still
he still supports AFC Wimbledon. He's brilliant.
Still a great friend. Yeah. Still a great friend at what he's done at Chelsea. He's incredible as well. He's a top guy in football. But I'm sitting there, so myself, my dad, Joe Kinnear, Sam Haman, and Dave Barnard all talking about, you know, money that you dream about, you know, and that's. I think they'd lost out on a signing just before me. I think they tried to get somebody from Cardiff, and I think they'd lost out because the wage demands were too high, and I think I was in luck because they didn't want to miss out on me as well. So I thought it wasn't extortion, you know, ridiculous. We weren't going for the jugular. It's sort of they were like quite generous, saying, we want you. We've just missed out on one. We want you here, and we want you to be our right winger. And it was a fantastic moment for me because this is Premier League. This is everything every player dreams of. You ask any player where they want to play in the Premier League. And
then what happened to you when you signed? What did they do with you, the crazy gang?
Yeah, well, the first week of training, we had Notts Forest on the Saturday. I think I signed on the Thursday, I think I came down the Friday. I didn't play against Blackburn, it was, on the Saturday. I remember watching the Blackburn game. Another irony in my life, you know, because Jack Walker was still around then, and I think Jack had said, oh, you know, why don't you come to Blackburn? We, you know, local lad. They never came in for me, you know. And that, we said, well, you never made a bid, you know. Maybe I'd have come back to Blackburn, but I was happy at Wimbledon. Meeting Ben Thatcher and Kenny Cunningham on the first meeting, that was a baptism of fire, you know, with Ben and Robbie, because Robbie had been at Port Vale. We didn't actually know each other.
Robbie Earl, yeah.
Robbie Earl, yeah. But we had this sort of connection. We'd both been at Port Vale. Robbie was from Stoke. I'd lived in Stoke. We instantly sort of hit it off, and he was the club captain. So that was in my corner already. But then in that first week's training, it was crazy. I think on the Thursday they cut my clothes off and set something on fire. I think my trainers or something set them on fire at the old Richardson Evans training ground out the window. So I think they left me for a couple of days because I was expecting it. So on about the Thursday,
I was going to say, you should have been sussed.
It was famous, you know, the famous Wimbledon crazy gang doing things to people. It was famous. So I think they'd left me on the first day and the second day, and about the third or fourth day, we were doing this session outside on the pitches, and all of a sudden Robbie Earl pulls up injured, and then Efan Okoku pulls up injured, and then I think Carl Lever pulls up injured, and I'm thinking, God, that's unlucky. Like 3 of them getting injured, and they weren't injured. They'd just gone inside so they could get get to my clothes before I got in. So I've walked in and showered, changed everything. Eat first, shower, change. Get ready to get changed again. All my clothes are in absolute ribbons, like a scarecrow. So they'd cut all my jeans right up. It was like, nowadays it'd probably be in fashion, but in those days, scarecrow, shirt was gone, trainers had been burnt, they were on fire somewhere, they were like a mouldy mess in the car park. And it was just all these pack of hyenas giggling and laughing, and I remember that I was staying in the Hilton at Cobham. That's where they put their new signings. And I remember having to walk into the Hilton in Cobham in my training gear and carrying this bunch of clothes that had been ripped to shreds. And but once you'd been done, and that was it. And I think John Hartson didn't follow me. Wasn't long following me through the door. You know, I think 2 or 3 weeks later, John was the big signing.
I think he was £7 million. Wasn't
I think 7.5. So I was 2, and I this big signing, and they blew it out of the water with 7.5. So he came in the door, and I think they got him 10 times worse than they got me. So he could afford it more than me. So he took the pressure right off.
But unfortunately, your Wimbledon career was blighted by injury, wasn't it?
Yeah, very much so. you know, on the way down, we'd been speaking to Kevin Keegan. He was at Fulham at the time, and he was also England manager. And there was, you know, there was all sorts of, you know, opportunities for me. But I think I only played about 5 or 6 games in the Premier League, and then got a groin injury, which
You played, if this is correct, if I pulled off the net, 8 times you played the first season, didn't score.
Yeah,
and then just 2 times the second season.
I was out for a whole year. I remember.
So it's 10 games in 2 seasons. Yeah,
and for the big signing, you know, it's just not. It wasn't good enough. I had this groin injury. People suffer from it now. I think Stephen Gerrard had a similar thing at the time, and I was out for a long, long time. I think I spent one Christmas day in the treatment room, and then the next Christmas day in the treatment room. It was that long.
So what goes through your mind when this is going on? Here you are. You've got. This is the pinnacle of your career. You feel here you are in the Premier League. You've been. They paid £2 million for you. You get a decent salary, and you're hardly playing. It must be terrible.
Well, as you said it there. One of my biggest things was I felt guilty, you know. I felt a big amount of guilt that I was picking up this wage. They paid all this money for me, and I was in the treatment room, and I was trying so hard to get out of the treatment room, and probably they put a little bit of pressure on me to come back early a couple of times and put myself back even further, and I think that did happen. It was a groin injury that we tried to treat the hernia. I had about 4 operations on the groin. I even had my wisdom teeth taken out. You know, this radical new. We got right down at a year down the line. This French. I remember going to France, and they sent me. This new. They were saying that somehow that the wisdom teeth are connected to the nerves, and this can cause tension down. I went through everything. Believe me, absolutely everything, and the emotion was. Guilty, a little bit despair, you know. It was it wasn't tears, but it was close to a couple of times because you know, it was the first time in my career where I'd come up against something like this.
Yeah, it must be so frustrating because you know your career's finite.
Yeah.
You know you get to a certain age, you can't really play anymore.
Of course, you know.
And the years, 2 years ticked by.
And I think not just that. I think what I'd done previously, I was feeling like I could have done anything in football. I was really flying. So to have the you know, the rug pulled underneath you, so to speak, and it was literally the whole house was pulled underneath me. It just put me out for a year. I came back. I got another injury, a different injury, kept me out for 6 months, and then I came back. And by the time I came back to full fitness, Wimbledon were in the Championship, and that really was. I've got no regrets, but one wish was that I could have had a longer spell in the Premiership than I got, you know. I mean,
and of course Joe Kinnear
Joe
wasn't well.
Had his heart attack at Sheffield Wednesday, and Mick took over, and Terry took over, and
Egil Olsen came in, didn't he?
Egil Olsen came and that's the year we went down. Some good memories, some fantastic memories, and they will always outdo the injury memories. You know, my debut at Forest, beating Arsenal, who were the double champions that year, and then scoring 2 at Newcastle United. You know, it was probably the highlight of my career.
3-1 down we were.
3-1 down, and I remember Egil was the manager. We'd gone up. I was I wasn't 100% fit. I even remember to this day I wasn't 100% fit. The groins were still bugging me, but I had to get out and contribute somehow on this pitch. And I remember going. It was about the 70th minute or 65th minute or something. I walked out as subs do, and Mick Harford came out with me. He was one of the coaches there, and all he said to me, we're 3-1 down, and it looked to all the world we were going to get beat. He just said to me, "Gaz, just go and cause havoc." That's what he said to me. So I just played anywhere I wanted to on that front line. Picked up the ball on the left wing, cut in on the right wing, and scored one in the box. And that, again, those 2 goals were great moments, and moments I'll save you. The only thing that I was disappointed was that my mum and dad have been to. I played 600 league games. I reckon they've been to 570. That was one of the ones they didn't go to. So mum and dad were never there to see the 2 goals in the Premier League, and you know they were the first on the phone to congratulate me afterwards.
So, as you say, Wimbledon went down. It was an awful time. Terry Burton was the manager for 2 years when we when we were in the Championship.
Yeah.
And you got back from injury. You did play some games, but then you lost your place to Jody McEnough.
Which again, it was. I mean, a great name to lose your place to, because Joby had a fantastic career as well. We were playing well, and we had a good side. Trond Anderson had come in the team. Mark Williams, Neil Ardley was still there, commanding things in midfield, because me and Neil always thought only one of us would get to play because we were both sort of right-sided midfielders. But Neil was this fantastic midfield player. Jason Ewell, of course, a real good team in the Championship. And yeah, Joby was coming through as a young kid, and rightly so. You have these moments in your careers where somebody's doing better than you. And I remember battling with Joby over positionals, and I think Stuart Murdoch took over the final season, and I ended up going to Cardiff in the March, and Joby made that position his own then, and that's where we parted company with Wimbledon.
Yeah, and Wimbledon had become something else by that time as well. We won't go into that though. So you went to Cardiff briefly, and then you end up at QPR.
Yeah, well, Sam Haman was at Cardiff, so that was he'd gone to Cardiff, and Sam rang me and said, "Get down here," and I played a part in their promotion from that was League One as it is now. Played a part in their promotion to the Championship. Never played in the final, but I played all the games running up. I actually got sent off in the last game of the season, so I was suspended for the semis. Didn't regain my place for the final at the Millennium Stadium, but they beat, ironically, QPR. Now, I'd been told earlier in the season with Cardiff I was going to get another year, I was going to get another contract, but when they got promoted, their targets changed, shall we say, so they were going to go for bigger players. I was this guy from Wimbledon, hadn't played a great deal at Wimbledon, so they were going to let me go. And ironically, the team that Cardiff beat in the final, QPR, they came knocking in Holloway. I was in Portugal actually at the time, I remember, and in Holloway called and said, "I want you to come and play for QPR." He'd seen me play against QPR for Cardiff, and he'd also seen me play for Wimbledon against QPR. One game we won at 5-0 at home, and so Ian Holloway was the reason I went to QPR. And
they were then at the third tier, weren't they?
So they were then League One again, so the third tier. And
they were really having a...
And so, but that was...
they had that whole ownership thing with Bernie Ecclestone.
Yeah, I mean, at the start, the first year we got promoted, so we went out the league. So the first year, the ownership, the mayhem, should we call it, was not apparent. It was a guy called Nick Blackburn who owned the club, and Chris Wright, the old
Chris
DJ,
Wright, Chrisless Records.
Yeah, so they owned the club, and I came to the club, and that really reignited my career. I played about 35 games that season. We got promoted. We got promoted at Hillsborough at the end of the season, and then the year after we were in the Championship, as it is now, and that's when it was Italian.
Flavio Briatore, I think.
Yeah, influences came into the club. I think Flavio was towards the end of that season, but it was great times at QPR. Really, really enjoyed QPR. Big. But it's
chaotic though, isn't it?
But it was chaotic in the middle of. I was there, I think, 2003 to 2010 or 9 for 6 years, and I think that middle couple of years was absolute mayhem. It really was. And I felt for the fans more than anyone, because
I watched that documentary the other night, the four-year plan.
Yeah.
Oh goodness, it's just okay that they've taken out of it. They put in the documentary all the dramatic bits. I understand that.
Of course, yeah.
But it just really is, as a fan, you just almost despair at that, because these are all things you don't want to know about football.
But I think one thing I've always had is I am a fan of football. I'm a fan of football who gets to play football. How lucky am I? But I've always been a fan first, and I'm a Blackburn fan, and we're going through the mill at the moment. So I totally understand what the fans must have been going through that time. I mean, the badge was changed, the whole look of the club was changed, and it was very chaotic behind the scenes. The managers they went through, and I became caretaker twice. Yeah, some great managers. Paulo Sousa, who came in, I thought was a fabulous manager, well beyond QPR at that time, you know, and now he's being linked with Premier League clubs, and he's been out in Basel and the Champions League. Ian Dowie, you know, fantastic John Gregory, you know, all these managers that we know, you know the names, but it was a conveyor belt of.
But when this chaos was going on, because they feature you in the documentary, you don't say very much, but you're milling around there.
That's intelligence, by the way. Not saying too much, I tell you.
And you were caretaker manager twice.
Yeah.
Were they trying to influence you in how you...
Of course, yeah, of course.
So they were saying, you've got to pick this guy?
Yeah, it wasn't picking the 11, but there was heavy pressure to play certain players that had come across from Italy. They paid big money for, you know, and look, you know, he's got to be in the team. You pick 10 others, but I want to see him in the team, you know. It wasn't... I think they covered themselves well when never saying he has to play, because I don't think you can do that, you know, but because I was in charge, but it was heavy influence, and I'm a senior pro, I think about 35 years old, 36 years old, who just sort of took over for the sake of the club, really. I thought, you know, I want to go at this. Of course I do. It's a manager's job. I'm 35. I was never ready. Never in a million years was I ready for that job. But I wouldn't have been ready for it if it had been normal. Never mind the chaos that came with that caretaker job, you know. And
but did you listen when they talked to you?
Oh yeah, you had to in your first couple of games and first 5 games. Yeah, of course I did, you know. And but we had some good results. We had some decent, and I still to this day say we had some good times there, you know. Some even with everything, there's some real good friends there, real good teammates who. Martin Rowlands, Kevin Gallen, you know, people, Mark Bircham's, you know, they're good friends who I got at QPR. Gary Waddock's still a fantastic friend. He was manager at one stage. Ian Holloway, big respect for. So I think the experience of QPR gave me. It gives you so much. It gives you so much knowledge about how to do things, how not to do things.
You must have learned so much about how to handle people when you're a caretaker manager.
I always think, went through that, and so behind the scenes there, I was getting called to meetings here, there and everywhere, and seeing the insides of the club, and seeing a club that I'd loved and grown to become a part of and love the fans and still do to this day, seeing it not being run very well, you know. It would just, in my opinion, you know, it's just sort of, the heart wasn't there, the QPR that we knew wasn't there, that we'd strived so much with no money, that we'd fought for to get promoted. It just seemed that there was this explosion of loads of money, we could do whatever they wanted and not care about much, and it hurt a little bit, you know, it did.
And what we need to talk about is that goal you scored at Rushden. I'm glad I remembered that. I found it on YouTube the other day. So I think it was only your 4th or 5th game, was that right?
Yeah, this was going
when
back
you first signed to QPR.
Before anything. Yeah, this was in Holloway, as we spoke about. Chris Wright.
I think you scored in your first game.
I scored 2 in my first game, my debut at QPR. I think 1 in my second game, and then 2 in my 4th game, which was away at Rushden and Diamonds, which I think, and yeah, I'll never hit another ball like that, you know.
Well, talk us through it, because anyone watching, you want to see a fantastic goal, go on YouTube, and I think you put in Gareth Ainsworth, Rushden, Diamonds and QPR. And that is stunning, because you were 3-1 down.
Yeah, I don't know why. The left back, Tommy Williams, had the ball, and he switched it over to me. At this time, I think it was a 1-0 down, I think we were at this time. I think we went 3-1 up and then eventually drew the game 3-3. But I think this game was this goal was to equalise. Yeah, so the left back's got it. He's just ventured over the halfway line, and I've hung back. Usually, I'm on a little bit, and I'm on the defender, and I'm ready to run in behind. For this game, I'm just a little bit deeper the defender. He's looked up, he's picked me out, and it was just one of those balls where you thought, you know what, I'm going to hit this because this is just set up right for me. And this goes way back to me and my brother going endlessly kicking balls and trying to score world-class goals against each other on a football field, Blackgate Field in Blackburn, when we were 6, 7, 8 years old. This goes right back there, believe me, this does. So I've hit this one, and you hit it and you think this might have a chance, but as soon as I hit that, I just knew I'd hit that so sweet that that was going in, and yeah, it was people just it put me on the hearts of all the QPR fans. That goal was sort of known. I think Trevor Sinclair had scored a fantastic overhead kick a few years earlier, which will always outdo mine. But I think I'm up there in some of the greatest goals.
It's interesting when you watch it on YouTube, and it's in the Rushton end. It's at Rushton, and the QPR fans at the other end. And I watch the Rushton fans, and they're sitting there, and their mouths are open, and then suddenly they start clapping.
That's always nice. You know, always nice
because they realise that they've seen something special.
Yeah, I knew at the time that it was. I don't know. Players, you ask players, they just hit them, you know, and it was just this moment of opportunity that I thought.
But you say you thought about it, but it takes half a second for the ball. You don't. It's almost like instinct, isn't it?
But as it comes, you're thinking, I can hit this. You know, you can. People who play will know what I'm talking about. You just think, I can hit this. This is on. But you hit it. You don't mean to put it in that top corner. You aim to do it, but it just came off, and it's one of those ones. The best thing is that 10 minutes later, I got another opportunity to hit one, and from the same distance, I hit one.
Good goal.
And I've hit the second one, and I think from that moment on, I remember in the game. From that moment on, every time I got the ball, all the QPR fans were just shouting, "Shoot, shoot!" from no matter where I was on the pitch. I would have loved to have completed a hat trick, but. No, the two special goals, the two at Newcastle for Wimbledon were, you know, my prestige-wise Premier League goals. But these two, you've got to say that it's probably the best goals.
See, the interesting thing is, wherever you've been, you become a cult hero. Even though you didn't play so much for Wimbledon, you're regarded as the Wild Thing cult hero. QPR, obviously. So Lincoln City as well. It's like people hold you as special. It doesn't happen to all players.
No, I think it's a style maybe in that, you know, the hair maybe helps. At Blackburn once, I was speaking to an old centre half called David Mail. Blackburn fans will know what I'm talking about. And he said, you want to get recognised in this game, shave your head or grow your hair. That's what he said. They always remember bald-headed players, and they always remember players with long hair. I grew the hair because they're rock and roll, but I think it helps. It's just, I think it's the style. Like I say, what I lack in skill, I'll always make up for in heart, you know. And you ask any fan, and they'd rather have heart and 100% every single game than the skill bit, you know. And I think in the modern game, you have players, these ridiculously skillful players that can be a bit luxurious, but they'll win games for you. You've got to have 9 or 10 absolute stalwart heart players around them. I think that's what I am. I'm all action. And because I was on the wing, it was all action, pace, get forward. I just used to get the ball and wanted to go forward with it every time. I was never a player to keep possession, to play across the back. I think the modern game would probably kill me at the highest level, because all I wanted to do was get that ball. Who can I get past? How much ground can I get for my team? Can I get a shot off? Can I get a crossing? And that was always my philosophy, getting the ball, you know, and ball carriers, probably they call them nowadays, but I was always positive of going forward. I used to say to people that, they used to say to me, Gaz, sometimes when you get the ball, you've got time. And I used to say, time is my worst enemy on a football pitch. I need instincts. I need something to go off. And it's true, you know, there's players who need time, who can make use of great time. I was a player who didn't need time, didn't want time. I just wanted a defender to beat, somebody to go at, a shot to get off, a cross to get off, and I think that's frustrating for some of my teammates, obviously, because I didn't always get past. I'd lose the goal, but for the fans, I think that's what they want to see. They want to see players getting the ball forward, taking the ball forward.
They love to see players with heart
taking people on, and I think that's probably why it's nice to be remembered. But I'm hoping it's for the right reasons.
Okay, we must go into your Wickham time now. I get lots about Wickham in there. So you joined Wickham 2009.
Yep.
They were League One, so that's the third tier again. And you got off to a pretty good start there too, didn't you?
Yeah. You know, I went on loan from QPR. Gary Waddock was the manager who'd been at QPR. Again, you know, good guy, good influence on me. Faith in me at 36 years old, you know. So to sign a player at 36 at any level, you're thinking, the fans are thinking, is this guy still got it? Luckily, I still had my pace, still had what I'd had. I'd had a year out at QPR, actually reserve team manager, caretaker manager.
Okay.
And I think that year out actually just gave my body a rest, you know. And I think I was ready to go again that year later. And yeah, when I arrived, I remember beating Millwall in our first game. And we went down that season, but I think the fans had seen enough of me to know that I would be okay, you know. And the following season, I became captain of the club, and we got promoted at the first attempt from the second division to the first. This confuses me, from the fourth tier to the third tier.
Yes.
You know, and I captained the team that season, 12 goals at 37 years old, and again I consider that as one of my good seasons in my career. You know, I think at that age it was difficult. Recovery gets difficult as you get older, but no, it's a great club to play at, and I was glad to be able to captain the team to promotion that year.
Because you were pretty instantly accepted at Wickham, weren't you, by the fans?
Again, I think the style of play. I think that, you know, it's just that I think people will always go off my energy and always go off my positivity. And again, I went there in a team that was sort of around the bottom of the league, but believed we could stay up, and wanted to give this energy to these fans and these players, and we almost did stay up.
And then Gary Waddock got the sack, didn't he?
Yeah.
It was after the Wimbledon game. We won Wimbledon 1-0.
I remember, yeah. So we got up as when I was captain that year. Then the season after, I didn't play as many games. We came back down again, and then Gary was under pressure. What had happened is when Wickham were owned by a guy called Steve Hayes. He owned the club. He was putting a lot of money in, and I think it was time that he wanted to get out. And then the trust took over, the fans took over, very much like Wimbledon, Exeter's, and so the fans took over the club, and we were struggling in League Two a little bit. Results hadn't gone the right way, and it is players. It's always players. Players it's hard for managers, because when the players aren't playing, it's always the manager who goes, you know. But some players, I don't believe the players were performing to their potential, you know. And I remember that day we got beat off. I think Terry Brown had left Wimbledon the week before.
Well, he got the sack, and Simon Bassey was caretaker.
Simon was in charge, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember talking to the fourth official after the game, and he said to me, "That's probably the worst professional game I've ever seen. It wasn't a good game." No. But Wimbledon won, so Wimbledon had been through a bad run as well.
Yeah,
so.
I think Gary was, some of the players weren't doing it for him. Wimbledon had been through this transition. I think Terry was actually in one of the boxes, if I remember rightly.
You're absolutely right. He came with his family. Yes,
I remember that. Yeah, because I do remember him running over and clapping to him, and I know Terry. He lives near me, great guy, you know, and it was nice touch for that. But the game itself, wasn't a great game. I think I do remember it. We missed it. We saved the penalty. You had a penalty. We saved the penalty.
I remember the detail.
And then 1-0. 1-0.
It was 1-0. Yes.
And then after the game, Gary was sacked, by the trust, and on the Monday morning, they put me in charge for caretaker. Obviously, I didn't know how long it would last. The club was in quite a state.
Wasn't very good financial state, was it?
We weren't in a good way, you know. Yeah. I think the money had been pulled out. Rightly, someone was losing a lot of money. They wanted to get out. The trust took over. It was going to take some huge effort to turn this round financially. And that first season on the field, momentum kicked in. We finished mid-table, but we had a lot of debt. We had a hell of a lot of debt.
But how did you feel about Gary getting the sack and you getting off the job, because he'd brought you to the club in the first place?
One mark of the man is the night he got the sack, he called me and said, "Take the job." What the mark of Gary Waddock is that he said, "Take the job." He said, "You'll do fantastic," and he knew that. Yeah, of course I would have taken the opportunity, but he always knew what would I be thinking in the back of my head about Gary. So he took that situation out and just rang me and said, "Look, take it. I wouldn't care.
That's
this is
very
football."
decent, yeah.
So what a decent guy, you know. So I had no qualms in taking the caretaker job on the Monday. We lost our next game actually 3-0 away at Dagenham, but then we started to hit a bit of form, and yeah, comfortable mid-table that season. But like I say, it was.
But how did you handle the thing of being one of the lads playing?
Tough, very tough.
And then you're the one selecting the team.
It was different to QPR because QPR, they knew that, oh my God, they've just put Gaz in charge because
there's no one else.
No, there's no one else.
Yeah.
At Wickham, they
Yeah.
could have appointed someone. They gave it me, and I mean, at 37, 38 years old, it wasn't a major thing because I'm quite mature there. You know, I'm the oldest in the club by maybe 5 or 6 years. So players like Gary Doherty, the ex-Tottenham player, Matt Bloomfield, who's been there a long time, instantly started respect instantly, and I think that helped. So I've said this previously in interviews. A great amount of respect for those guys, because once your older pros start disrespecting your manager, your younger pros just follow suit and they think it's the right thing to do. So I got instant respect from, but I think I earned that through the way I played, the way I trained every day, the way I did things. I'm hoping that people have always respected the way I've conducted myself professionally. It's not like I've been some sort of idiot off the pitch or would never try in games or would toss training off sometimes. Just, you know, I always did it right. So I think you get that, and when I did need that respect, I got it from those guys. So the younger players seemed to follow suit, and we stayed up, like I said, that season, and then the next season was the.
But what did you actually change? Why did you start to get results where Gary wasn't?
Sometimes it's just a mental change for the boys, you know, that it's like the Ranieri Shakespeare thing at Leicester, you know. It's the same players, but it's just that mental change. And as we spoke earlier, the mental side of the game is so big now.
Yes.
That I believe that maybe some of the guys were felt pressured by Gary, and maybe couldn't do what Gary was asking, where I maybe stripped it back a little bit, went a little bit more basic. These players could do what Gary was asking, but they were just in a bad time.
But were you doing different things in training?
A little. You want to put your spin down on everything. So yeah, we did change a little bit. You know, I think probably as a player who likes to get the ball forward, I got the ball forward more. You know,
That's your style. It's
yeah,
your
that's my
personal
forward.
style.
That's the way I go. You know,
Yeah.
and I've always, the QPR thing was helpful because I did start looking into the coaching side, the football side. I never even envisioned me to be a manager in my mid-20s. I was always going down the route of physio or music, and that's what I wanted to do. I was studying physio a little bit, but I was heavily with the music as well. And so the QPR thing was great timing for me. And again, this fate thing we talk about, it was great time because I started looking into football, looking at how I would do things, and then got the chance to implement it at Wickham. So I tightened things up a little bit at the back, the way I wanted to, and went forward a bit faster with the ball, and it seemed to work. But the year later, it didn't work too well.
Well, that was quite dramatic, because as you were saying earlier before I interrupted you, you managed to finish that season mid-table.
Yeah.
And you must have had presumably fairly positive
and false
for next season.
False for
False
me.
hopes, yeah.
False hopes. So what had happened is, it probably was the mental side, the relief, a new manager, a new face, a new voice. Yeah, we got results. We finished mid-table. False hope for me then. Really, what I should have done is gone, right, this place needs ripping apart, but I didn't. I kept with a very similar squad, and if I'm honest, I'm much more of a disciplinarian now. I'm much more of a manager figure now than I was then. I was almost a coach who was taking the team now. Now I'm a manager who manages the club.
Yes.
So in my second season in charge, again, we started well. I remember we started the season well. But then from about, I think Christmas time, we picked up minimal amount of points, absolute minimal amount of points. And even teams going down to 10 men, we couldn't beat them. We couldn't break teams down. And then towards the end of the season, nobody saw it coming really, but we dropped into that bottom two with one game to go.
So what was going through your head as this deterioration was going on? You're obviously still giving it your best.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
Absolutely, giving it my all.
did you stop sleeping at night? How do you handle that personally?
No, you know, I never. I always give my all. I always will. I always give everything, and I expect my players and people around me to give everything. And sometimes that's a fault because you always judge other people as you are, and you expect it, and it doesn't always happen. But as long as I can look in that mirror every night and know I didn't shaft anyone, I gave everything, and I'm content with what I've done, I can always sleep at night. There's moments, there's stressful moments at work, but I never let it really affect me at home too much. The club was in big disarray. The club was in huge disarray. There was things going on behind the scenes which, I can't really talk about now, but it wasn't great at all. The club was in trouble. I think if we'd have gone down that year, I don't think there would be a Wycombe Wanderers anymore. And it was that serious.
Wow.
So I think that it got to a stage where I actually knew it wasn't just me. I was a big cause, but the whole thing was going wrong. And.
Did you actually fear for your job? Did you think you might get the sack?
I thought I might get the sack, but I didn't fear for the sack.
Okay.
If you understand that.
No, you were just taking it as something that happened.
I didn't fear it because I don't fear anything. I'm not scared of anything.
Yeah.
I always see it as an opportunity. Whatever is an opportunity. I will always go glass half full, no matter what.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
and so that would have been an opportunity. Yeah, I feared that. I didn't fear, but I knew there could be an opportunity somewhere else for me. That's how I'll put it. But what we did on that final day, and I still can't believe we did it.
Well, let's get it in sequence. So you lost your last home game at home to Bristol Rovers.
So the two teams fighting with us were Northampton and Bristol Rovers, and we played them in concession. The two last home games of the season were Northampton, who beat us, and Bristol Rovers, who beat us. And on the Bristol Rovers game, that put us in the bottom three. Bristol Rovers leapfrogged us, went 3 points above us, invaded the pitch, thinking they'd stayed up, and everyone to the world think they stay up because this was now us 3 points adrift in the bottom two, relegated under that line that you see in the newspaper. We're under that line now, 3 points to the next team. And we had to win on Saturday away at Torquay, who'd already been relegated. So that was doable. But what wasn't doable was Northampton or Bristol Rovers had to get beat. Not draw, they had to get beat.
Yeah.
And that was, for me, one tall order. That was something that you see on the final day of the season when you're watching Sky Sports and you're thinking, wow, that's happened. You never actually think you're going to be in that situation. We were slap bang in the middle of that situation, and we needed something to happen.
So what did you say to the players before the game?
Well, we went down the night before on the Friday night, and we trained on the Friday. There'd been a few arguments in training on the Friday. I remember this, but we got them down there.
Arguments with you?
Not arguments with them. Arguments amongst the tension was high. The pressure was high. There was arguments amongst the boys who weren't travelling and who were travelling, and there was all sorts going on that day. It was up to me to, and that week, Ian, I don't know why, I'd barefaced said we were going to stay up. I'd said it all week, and I don't know why. I do know why, because if I'd have said we're not going to, nobody would have believed it.
Yeah.
But I actually started believing myself, and I thought, we're going to do this. We're going to do this week. We had a sponsors dinner on the Tuesday night, where all the sponsors came, the fans who sponsored the shirts, and they all had their opinions, and a lot of them were saying, you know what, we support this club anyway, no matter what. And I just started believing we would do this. So we went down on the Friday. We got there. All the lads go to the dinners and everything. And I went, sleep that night. And on the morning of the game, I remember opening the curtains, and I had the best room I'd had all season for some reason, and looked right out on the sea at Torquay. And the sea was just out like a mill pond. And I don't remember that. I just remember this is calm. You don't see that very often. And I started thinking, you know what, this is the day. This is going to happen today. Checked my phone, went down pre-match, come back up, checked my phone again. Neil Ardley's texted me. So
Right.
a year earlier, Neil had been in the situation with
Wimbledon were home
Wimbledon,
to Fleetwood, and
yeah.
had to win. Yes.
Had to win.
Yeah.
And me and Neil were close at Wimbledon. We always had been, some great nights out together. So, and we'd come up together like that. And we were both managers, both very similar times. In fact, I think that there's not many months
about 18
between
days
us.
between. Do you know you're the 4th longest serving manager of the 92, and he's the 5th longest.
He's Neil
serving.
5th.
Yeah.
Well, I hope I stay ahead of him. So that means something's happened. But yeah, so we're great pals. And he's texted me, and he didn't have to text me, but he's thought about me that morning. They're safe. You're safe. Wimbledon that day, and so he's texted me, and his words were on the text: "Good luck today, mate. Just tell the lads, just play the game. Don't play the occasion. The occasion will look after itself. Just play the game." And as a manager, team talks. You ask any manager. Sometimes difficult, sometimes easy. That day was going to be difficult. And I thought, that's great, I'm going to use that in my team talk, and I did. And I used it in my team talk, and I said, not one of you start thinking about this occasion, not one of you start, I said, you score an early goal, do you think it's going to get to nothing? Of course it will, with social media nowadays, and we scored an early goal. So I used that in the team talk. We scored an early goal. I'm sure word got around. We scored 2 more. So we're 3-0 up away at Torquay with about 20 minutes to go. And I hear that Colin Daniel from Mansfield has scored against Bristol Rovers, a name that I won't forget. So thank you, Colin. Northampton were beating Oxford at this time, so I knew they were out of the equation, because even a draw wouldn't have been good enough for us. So to win away at Torquay and do what we'd done and still go down would have been harsh. But Mansfield had scored against Bristol Rovers. Now we're 3-0 up, and all I could do was concentrate on the press box then for the last 15 minutes. And I will admit, for the last 15 minutes, I didn't care what happened at Torquay. Yeah. All I cared about was what was happening at Bristol Rovers. And apparently they hit the post. They were close to scoring. And I just remember the final whistle going. Within seconds, both final whistles went, Torquay and Bristol Rovers. And it was just pure elation. I've just got an energy. I watch the footage back of when the final whistle goes, and I am ready to beat Usain Bolt in a 100-metre sprint. I'm telling you, because I was just so elated, and so I sprint on the pitch. I remember my respect as a manager. I walked over to Chris Hargreaves, shook his hand, said all the best to him, because they'd just gone. Yeah. But then, I just went to the fans, and to this day, I look back and think, how did we do that? I believed we did. But belief is one thing. Actually, the process of doing it is another, and I still can't believe we did it. But that was, I think that was a day that saved Wycombe Wanderers. I really do, in more ways than just football status. So the players who played that day, they did fantastic, and everyone connected with the club. That season, we one hell of a season, and then the year later, the new chairman came in.
It's Andrew Howard.
Andrew Howard, yeah. The racing driver, owner of Beach Dean Ice Cream, and he has single-handedly transformed the goings on away from the football at the club, and we sit here today with with the club in good shape. A lot to do with Andrew Howard, but the season he came in was another great ending to that one. The Wembley appearance against Southend. So from staying up at Torquay, we made plenty of changes in the summer. Plenty of changes, which are changes I should have made the summer before, by the way. But we made those changes, and with Andrew coming in, and
I presume you had a bigger budget as well, did you?
Slightly, yeah, not much. Believe me, we're still in. And to this day, we're still in trouble. We're not a club that can spend freely. We're not. You have to count the pennies at Wycombe Wanderers, and you will do for a few more years yet, without a doubt. But if we keep going the same way, we will be in a good place. But yeah, that the Wembley season, I tell you, I won't be surprised if we were bottom 3 budget, bottom 4 budget that season. It just seemed to. All the bad stuff that happened the year before, we seemed to get back. We got referees' decisions, we had sendings off. I had no injuries. We only played 23 players, I think, across the whole season, which was, which is a trait of successful teams. Chelsea this year have only used about 20, low 20s, so it just like no injuries and consistent team selection, and that worked. And at the end of that season, we were top of the league. We just fell away at the end, but made the playoffs.
But the interesting thing is that you had stability at the top of the club.
Yeah,
and that, as you found at QPR too, it's so important to have that.
Huge, Ian. And I think the boys, they feel that they know when it's going wrong behind the scenes. They know when it's going right behind the scenes. You do. People try and keep her away from the club. The newspapers are there, the social media is massive now. It's communication levels. People know when things aren't right behind the scenes in football, and it does affect things on the pitch, and I think Leyton Orient, great example. So I think the stability and the long-term aim. The great thing about Andrew is he sits with the players, he talks to the players.
Yeah.
He's not a chairman who is sat on his high pedestal. He's a doer. He was He was in a tractor the other week in a digger, helping dig up the training ground.
Really, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's hands-on, very successful businessman, but I can see why. So there's this long-term plan off the pitch, and the players know that's there, and that gives them stability, and it makes my job easier on the pitch.
Absolutely. So I wanted to go through the next two seasons as well in a little bit of detail. So 2015-16 season, you finished in 13th place. But of course, you played Aston Villa in the third round of the FA Cup.
Yeah, and again, for me as a manager, new territory, to draw a Premier League team in the FA Cup. We had the TV cameras down, and it was a great experience for the boys. A great opportunity for Wycombe Wanderers, and this was after the Wembley experience. We started putting ourselves on the map again. We really did, and so that season, disappointing end. We were top of the league at one stage of the season. In October, I think we were top. Again, with a restricted budget, but the boys we work so hard on the psychological side of things. We have a strong bunch of boys who will fight and scrap for you.
So when you sign a player,
yeah,
you're looking, and I know this is what the old Wimbledon did very much so with Joe Kinnear and Sam Hammond. They always. It wasn't so. It was the technical ability of the player.
Yeah, of course.
But also, are they going to fit in with the old Wimbledon?
Absolutely.
And this is what a manager has to do now to make sure, especially when you haven't got the budget like Wickham had.
Yeah.
You have to make sure the player's going to fit in with the existing group of players and your overall plan.
I think in football, for 4.5 years as a manager, recruitment is so big in football. Honestly, I believe that the top coaches in the world, they can't do it without good players. You've got to recruit good players. You really do. Recruitment's huge. So you get that wrong, I think you're in trouble. Is my belief. So looking into recruitment was a big drive of us. I've got a Richard Dobson, my assistant. We go into the psychological side of things, and as I said earlier, dealing with success, dealing with failure. Success, you can't get too high, you can't get too low. Nowadays in society, especially some of these young kids that have come through, how do they deal with adversity? How do they deal with something that's not gone right for them on the football pitch? You've got to learn quick. You've got to really learn quick. You've got to be resilient. You've got to be mentally strong. All these things, my opinion now, are coming above the technical and physical. They're all physical. They're all technical. The diets, we spoke earlier about Arsene Wenger coming in and changing everything in the early 90s. We're seeing the rewards of that now with the physical specimens in football and the technique that these players have got. They're fantastic. What separates them, in my opinion, is the mind, the mental side of things, which is crazy because 30 years ago when I started out, it was the physical and the technique that would separate you.
But you had the mind, though.
But I had the mind, but I was one of the few who got through with the mind. Now, there's only a few get through with the technical and the physical.
Yes.
It's the mind, honestly, that I believe is the biggest thing you have to... As a manager, we're counsellors, we're marriage counsellors, we're welfare officers, we do so much more than just football. If you said your job's just coaching and just on a Saturday, we would take that all day. There's
Yeah.
so much more that goes into it, and until you've sat in the chair, it's difficult to explain actually how much goes into it all. And so the psychological recruitment for us has to be spot on. And that season, we nearly went. That's the decision I made in that summer with Richard, to bring in mentally strong, resilient people, still technical, still physical, but mentally strong. I wanted a culture. I wanted to develop this culture, this ethos at Wycombe Wanderers, that no big timers. There's no. I don't want any of that. It doesn't fit with me. It doesn't fit with. I don't resonate with any of that. They've got to be a team. They've got to be together in everything they do. Would I stand next to this guy in the trenches? Would he be there for me? Has he got my back? And that's really important for me. And that's why we recruitment. That's our drive on recruitment now.
So when you signed a player like Alfie Mawson, who went on obviously on to Swansea, did you think there would be a potential with him there?
Alfie was on loan from Brentford. Alfie was a crazy one, because Alfie was not even in the plans until a week before the season, when we lost Gary Doherty at Barnet in a pre-season friendly. Alfie came in, and if I'm being totally honest, I didn't know a great deal about Alfie until we started playing him and developing him as a player.
Yeah.
But he's got that. He's got this up here. You know, Alfie Mawson is a humble, resilient. He's a great player. And he's at the top level for a reason, you know. But there's some good examples we have at Wickham, you know. The man we got from Wimbledon, Akin Fenway, you know.
Bayo Akin Fenway, what a legend he is,
What a character, you know. Yeah. Mental toughness. Wow, he's up there with the best. Would you have him in the trenches with you? Of course you would. Yeah. And these are the things that fit with our recruitment. So that season we nearly went. This was the drive. And I think from the 3 seasons after that, I think we've justified who we've brought in and what we've done. So back to the cup run, it was a great experience. You know, the Aston Villa, it's my first time as a manager to get a Premier League tie, and it was the highlight of that season until the season after, which is this current season we've just ended. Yeah.
So let's talk about this season then, because you had the very high-profile Tottenham game. And was it 3-1 up Wickham were at one time?
Thanks for reminding me. Yeah.
No, I'm
on the 83rd minute, yeah.
And then of course it was 4-3 in the end. But it was still a fantastic performance. But did you feel it impacted the league performance afterwards?
Without a shadow of a doubt, you know, yeah. So we went into the Tottenham game, we're flying, the league form was good. That game was much more of a high than people give it credit for. The whole club, Tottenham Hotspur away, you know, one of the last seasons at White Hart Lane. Just to be there was a high. Never mind to do what we did, you know, and as you say, to 3-1 up in the 83rd minute. You know, I think 3-2 up in the 83rd minute we went with Gary Thompson's header, and I turned to my assistant and said, I'm hoping that might be good enough for a replay. Little was I to know that they would score in the 97th minute, when only 96 were made available by the fourth official, by the way. Yeah. But it was such a high that day. It was, and it took so much out of us mentally and physically, and because we've recruited so high on the mental side of games, that game really took it out of us mentally. Mentally, we were shattered. And if I had it over again, I'd change things. I can't say too much because we have plans if that happens again. But the fixture build-up after that was...
I know you're going to play, aren't you, next time?
Chaotic. I should have played this time. The fixture build-up was chaotic after that. It was really chaotic, and we had Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday. And as a player, I used to love that. I'd play it, you're playing, no training, play. Yeah. As a manager, I hate it. As a manager, wow, recovery and little knocks to key players and preparation time for games. You know, it's really tough. So, we went 5 games on a losing streak for 5 games after that game, and that really derailed what looking like a playoff season again, you know. So and we almost made it.
You're only, I think,
a point,
point and 2 places away.
Yeah, a point. So we finished 9th, and 7th place was a point away. And and we can all go back and say that point was there or that point was there, but every manager can do that. I consider it again a successful season for us.
You in the Checkatrade Trophy, you got to the semi-final.
And the semi-final
so
of
that
the
was another
Checkatrade,
great cup run.
Which again was something special to Wickham, something special for me, and I say I do wake up every day thinking I'm a lucky guy, and to experience what I get to experience, not everyone does, and long may that continue.
Well, let's go for another 4 or 5 minutes, and that'll be an hour and a half, which is probably as much as people are going to be watched, to be honest.
They've probably switched off by now. Yeah.
No, not everybody. So, what's your kind of plan? So you've got the stability now with the chairman. You feel very happy with the structure in the club.
Well, what's happening at Wickham is
he's doubled your wage budget. Is that right?
Totally. Yeah. The chairman, Andrew Howard, is stepping down now this season, and he's becoming sporting director. So he wants to now come to the football side of things, which I think is fantastic.
Good.
He'll be more involved in that. Trevor Stroud, who's chairman of the trust, is now becoming chairman of the football club. Another great guy, and the club's in good hands, and with the backing of Trevor and Andrew on the sporting side, I think we've got a good chance. The budget, again, it's always tough, The Premier League is pulling that far away from the bottom that we do really struggle, at the bottom leagues and League Twos and some the bottom end of League One, money, pennies count. It's really important to spend your pennies right. So the biggest budget teams in League Two will always be at the top end, believe me, and I think it's been proved this year. What I think we've got is, again, we've got this culture, this spirit. We'll have a slight increase, of course we will, but I'm happy for the first time, as opposed to 3 years ago when I changed 10 players, 12 players. I've got 19 under contract. I'm very happy with what we have. We have no youth team, we have no reserve team at Wickham. We just have a first team, and that is it. We have nothing else. So I'm very happy with the position we're in the summer. We need 1 or 2 players. I know what those positions are, and I'm actively out there. But it's a massive game of poker at the minute. Every manager cannot show their hand, or do they fold early? Do they chuck in early? It's a crazy game at the moment this summer, and being one of the lower clubs, it's even tougher for us, So we want to go one better, but we also don't want to put expectation too high. We know what we are at Wycombe Wanderers. We're this club that's a family club. Its history is great, but it's only 25 years in the league, or whatever. It's relatively a new club in the league. We want to get promoted.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do, but expectation has got to be balanced off with that. We're not going to go.
You have to overperform.
We always have to overperform,
yeah.
And I don't mind doing that.
Yeah,
I don't mind doing that. We can do that. I know we can do that. It's how many teams overperform with us, because I know we can do that. So, the likes of Blackpool and Exeter maybe, they give me inspiration. They were up there. They weren't the biggest clubs.
Blackpool are up, Exeter, and obviously in League Two again next season. Yeah.
I mean, but they were the playoff final, both of them. So you're not a million miles away from those clubs. We can do this, but it's going to take hard work again and a little bit of luck.
And the interesting thing is that I mentioned earlier, you're the 4th longest serving manager in the Football League and the Premier League together, 92 clubs. Neil Ardley at Wimbledon is the 5th longest. And the Exeter manager, Paul Tisdale, is the 3rd longest. Second.
The 3rd is League Two. Jim Bentley,
Jim. Yeah. But it means that 3 out of the top 5 longest serving managers are fan-owned clubs.
And also League Two. Yeah, that's true, Exeter, Wimbledon and Wickham.
Wimbledon obviously League One. But 3 out of the 5 are fan-owned clubs. And there's only 4 now fan-owned clubs left in the Football League, because Portsmouth are now getting taken over. They're in Newport County that are left. So there's something about this fan-owned club.
Yeah, of course.
That there's loyalty, the fans own the club, and it works over time because they stay with things.
It definitely works over time. I think the Wimbledon model's a fantastic model, I know they had to start really low down, but never going above your means is really important, and I think that it's a good lesson to be learned. Exeter again, consistently churn out good kids from their academy and perform consistently. And I'm hoping one day Wycombe Wanderers can be a profitable club, but also still be fan-owned and still be proud of that.
Gareth, I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's
and
been great.
we've had a good chat over your whole career, and obviously focus more on Wimbledon and obviously Wickham. But I think there's a lot in there that is very interesting, and thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks very much.
And thank you for watching Cherry Red TV again, and I hope we see you again soon. Goodbye.